Good morning, afternoon, and evening to everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome you all to the seventh Breathe In Dialogue, organized as part of the Cleaner Air and Better Health Project, also known as the CABH project. These dialogues are envisioned as platform to deep dive into the world of indoor air quality. We discuss the issues, explore innovative solutions, and learn from each other. The dialogues cover broad themes such as regulatory convergence, design and technology, monitoring and management, and occupant awareness. There is something for everyone. These dialogues are brought to you by us at Environmental Design Solutions, along with our knowledge partner, the Society for Indoor Environment. We have a fantastic lineup of experts today who will be sharing their experiences, research, and stories on certifications for indoor air quality. You can look forward to an engaging discussion with our esteemed experts and participate in interactive sessions. Don't hesitate to jump in and use the Q&A function to ask questions or share your comments. And keep an eye on the screens for our polls. They are a fun way to get involved and see what everyone is thinking. So let's get started. A little brief about the Cleaner Air and Better Health project. This project is a 5-year project supported by the USAID. It aims to strengthen air pollution mitigation and reduce exposure to air pollution in India. The project is being implemented by a consortium led by the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, CEW, and includes ASAR Social Impact Advisors, Environmental Design Solutions, Enviro Legal Defense Firm, and Vital Strategies. My name is Dipanjali, and we are very honored to have our esteemed speakers, Stanton Wong from RESET, Dimpy Daroch from UL Solutions, and Dr. Om Prakash Singh from CEW, along with my colleague, Guneet. Now, I'd like to invite OP, the Chief of Party for the CABH project, to share more details about the Cleaner Air and Better Health project. Over to you, OP.
Thank you for this great opportunity, and I'm thankful to the panelists here who have taken their time to talk upon this important certification rating for indoor air quality. And I'm quite hopeful that we'll gain a lot session today. So today I'm here going to talk about USAID supported Cleaner Air and Better Health project. I will give a brief overview. As my previous speaker has already talked about that this is a USAID supported project. It has two main objectives. It aims to strengthen air pollution mitigation and also reduce exposure to air pollution. And this we do by establishing evidence-based models for better air quality management. As informed earlier, this project is implemented by a consortium, and the consortium is being led by the Council on Energy, Environment and Water, which is one of the Asia's leading non-for-profit policy research institution, and basically sees the project management of all CABH project and the research work in and around the air quality. The consortium includes ASAR Social Impact Advisor, who basically works on community engagement and empowerment, how the citizens and the communities can be more knowledgeable on their roles and responsibilities and how they can involve the government for better air quality. Then of course, we have EDS with us, Environmental Design Solutions, who are leading this webinar, and they basically on the indoor air quality solutions. And as one of the important mandates under CABH, we are right now working on how we can have better indoor air quality protocols and standards to improve on. We are also supported by Enviro Legal Defense Firms, which basically works on the legal and regulatory reforms related to air quality. And of course, we have Vital Strategies as one of the consortium partners, which deals into the air quality and its impact on health matters within the project as a part of it. As we move here, you can see a screen here. It is Naye Bharat ki Nayi Hawa, what we call. So this is a zero carbon product that is placed in front of you. It is produced by clean energy without any emissions on. I will talk about it more when I just move ahead and progress on that. When we talk about the CABH approach, how do we dwell with strengthening mitigation and reducing exposure to air pollution, we basically follow 5 approaches into this whole project. The first approach that we talk about, it basically deals how we can enable monitoring and regulatory reforms. And this means that how we are able to support this system in large, where they can better understand what are the legal and regulatory mandates into this. It can be simplified for a better follow-ups, how the data monitoring can be improved. We also use the approach of use of data for decision making. So there is no of data right now in the environment, but then how to use the data for appropriate decision making. This is something that we all are struggling on the ground level at this moment. So our project deals in how we can best make use of data for decision making. For example, we are incorporating the decision support systems in selected cities, where in the all data they are merged together to give a strategic direction for the implementers to take action. The approach on elevating sectoral transition to clean energy through innovations and solutions. This is something where we are right now researching into the new innovative products, so wherein we can replace the old traditional fossil-based methods with the cleaner fuel method of using energy. And of course, capacity building, equipping institutions with the relevant project management skills. How do we handle the air quality problems, and how it can for better informed decision? That is another approach. And one approach is, of course, how do we deal with citizens? How do we engage citizens for better decision making and awareness? The overall objective of our whole this CABH project is to support and cap to accelerate its ambitions for a better, cleaner air, and thus leading to a better health of all. And we do this, by creating an ecosystem that enables adoption of cleaner practices in multiple sectors, maybe industrial sector, mobility sector, clean cooking, and then how we can strengthen the cooperation between government and non-government stakeholders to meet overall and cap India's goal of cleaner air. As an impact of CABH, what we intend to do by 2026 is, of course, that we would like to establish scalable and sustainable models and innovations for accelerating particulate matter reduction in the country. Few of the highlights that we are right now looking at, that how we are piloting clean energy technology into the MSME units, where we are demonstrating 98% reduction in PM 2.5 at this moment. And this is something that could be a game changer into the MSME sector as a whole together. We are also working towards the improved access to LPG. We all know that right now, in the terms of coverage or access, it is more than 98% of LPG distribution. But in the terms of usage, we would certainly like to increase the sustained use of LPG up to the tune of 80%, which would result in 38% reduction of PM 2.5 in a year. We are working with SPCPs. We have targeted 5 SPCPs to build their capacities, how they can navigate on legal instruments on air pollution. And here we have developed an innovative VIULEX first national portal for the regulators and the lawyers to interact together. This portal is still in a pilot stage, and hopefully in a couple of months it will be out for the wider public to use and refer. We are also working towards the improved solid waste management, wherein we are demonstrating on-ground interventions to demonstrate 17% reduction in the emissions. In the mobility sector, we have eyed on adopting almost 7,500 e-vehicles, which would lead to 6.2 tons of PM 2.5 reduction in Lucknow and Amritsar at this moment. In the terms of community engagement, we are activating clean air action hubs to empower communities on air quality management. We are also working with the health department to strengthen 14 sentinel surveillance sites for reporting disease data. And then, of course, under this indoor air quality, we are right now working with 7 buildings, or we can say 7 organizations, which adopt established protocols on monitoring and management of indoor air quality and healthy buildings. And plus, also, we're also piloting self-regulatory mechanism at the construction sites to demonstrate at least 40% reduction in PM2.5 through self-regulatory mechanism at this moment. The overall idea of CABH is that we innovate and then we integrate it with the system, with the institutions, with the government, and implement at scale for impact to influence the air quality in the country. A few of the examples I would like to just quote here where we use the participatory approach to model solutions. Uh, One of these that we are using first of its kind air quality monitoring network for construction sites. So we are piloting this in Gurgaon, where we are trying to identify what are the major factors which contribute to the emissions and how these emissions can be controlled or mitigated within the construction site. And of course, this whole piece depends on how the builders or the constructors, they are able to self-regulate their mechanism. Another that we have been working on the evidence generation on the health impact of exposure to air pollution. Here we have developed standard operating procedures for national outdoor disease surveillance platforms to support NCDC, wherein they report the air pollution related diseases, and then we are providing technical support to the government of Madhya Pradesh and Bihar, how we can activate and sustain these 14 surveillance sites, which can be a model for the rest of the country to follow on. On the supply side, in the transition to clean cooking fuel, I think we are exploring the solutions of the business models to increase affordability in terms of grants, carbon credits, and microfinance, where we are piloting with the self-help groups how they can be more employed at the ground level as a last mile delivery mechanism. We have conducted the largest LPG distribution survey in the country, which has resulted in a kind of a policy change and influence in the country to influence the LPG distribution and access. On the demand side, as I talked earlier, that yes, we are working with 12 clean air action hubs, and where they provide support and enable ambient and household air pollution mitigation measures. And this is completely a voluntary mechanism, which is a non-organized thing wherein the active citizens of the particular city, they come together and be the voice for the air quality management into their areas. We have developed first of its kind natural gas furnace, which is under patent right now. We are in the process of doing the patent on that. And this whole work is being done in partner with CDB, Torrent, and Ahmedabad Smart City, and the artisans there. So as I spoke earlier, so this whole innovative design has demonstrated a 98% reduction in PM2.5. Innovation that has been done under this whole project is basically battery powered variable heating solution. So this whole is especially well accepted right now within the Delhi area, wherein the vulnerable population which works in night, like guards or workers, they are being provided with these heating jackets, which can be regulated, temperatures can be regulated, so that it may result into the reduced stable burning and hence may give less emissions in the air. One of the models that we are working in the mobility sector is that the transition of diesel auto to the electric auto actually. And for this, we have run a campaign on three-wheelers in Amritsar, and wherein we have got some very exciting results to cheer on. So almost we had 220 auto drivers who have been given these autos for piloting for 3 days. So we have been able to transition 750 diesel autos to that. Plus also we have a special focus on the engagement of women right now. And for this purpose, I think the CABH project with ASAR, we have been able to have a government priority as a pink auto for 200 women drivers. And now we have identified 108 women drivers who are engaging themselves for moving on this. This is the whole campaign that Sartaj, my electric friend in Punjab, it resulted in that. As I talked about decision support system that we have been working and we are piloting right now in Thane. Here we are now also integrating the construction and demolition dust management protocols also. so that this gives a kind of a strategic direction to the Thane Municipal Corporation to take appropriate steps to manage the emissions in the future. Of course, on the waste management, we are right now working on zero waste schools and then zero waste wards in Amritsar and in Ludhiana in support of MOHUA. And on the healthy buildings, as we are right now, so we are developing standards and protocols to be replicated in the country. Say that we are here to build solutions to scale and institutionalize the best practices here. Thank you so much for your patience for hearing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Obi. I'd now like to set up the context before we kick off today's discussion with our experts. So, indoor air quality certifications and rating systems provide a holistic framework to indoor air quality as part of their criteria. They promote practices that go beyond merely diluting indoor air pollutants with a focus on design strategies such as source elimination and source control, construction management, operation and management strategies, including IAQ testing and monitoring, and various policies related to IAQ. These are some of the national and international green building certifications. The main objective of most of these certification and rating systems is to address the impact of a building and its operation on the use of energy, water, indoor environment quality, material selection, ecological footprint, and greenhouse gas emission throughout the life cycle of the building. In most of these systems, indoor air quality has been a subset, whereas some of the certification systems such as RESET Air and UL's Verified Healthy Building for Indoor Air are more indoor air quality or IAQ driven. They provide a holistic framework to indoor air quality as part of their criteria. Some of these certification focus on sustainable building practices, incorporating natural ventilation and low emission materials, while others prioritize on strict pollutant limits, requiring advanced filtration and rigorous air quality monitoring. The stringency of the criteria or thresholds for indoor air quality can vary significantly. Our experts, Stanton and Dimpy today, will deep dive into these certification systems. As part of the CABH project, we have undertaken monitoring of indoor air quality parameters in different types of building. I'll take one example of PM 2.5 measurement in 3 types of spaces. 2 of these buildings were residential and 1 is an office space. The point to notice here is that the acceptable threshold limits for PM 2.5 concentration across different systems may vary from less than 15 micrograms per cubic meter to 35 micrograms per cubic meter. In all of these 3 spaces, the PM 2.5 are way higher than what the different rating systems may provide. So certifications or rating systems hold facilities accountable to the quality of indoor air that has been provided by ensuring actions are taken to keep the indoor air quality parameters within the set thresholds. So moving on, with this, now I'd like to invite Stanton, who will present the RESET Air certification program covering its key features and benefits. He will also cover case studies demonstrating success stories from certified projects. Stanton Wong serves as the president of RESET. He has a professional background in software development, product management, and coaching. He is a futuristic, passionate about topics such as sustainability, education, technology, environment, and health. Stanton's interests also include gamification, incentives, and optimization of processes and design choices using nudge theory. Stanton is a computer science and film double major and brings in a balanced skill set of engineering and design. It is an honor to have you on this dialogue, Stanton. So over to you now.
Thank you very much. Do you guys see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, perfect. So I see a large group of the crowd already knows about RESET. So the presentation today is going to be more focused on the concepts and the philosophy with more of a technical pitch to it. So why we designed the standard this way is going to be more of what we're going to be talking about today. So RESET is a performance standard, and performance is going to be the key here for today when we're talking about this in terms of how we're approaching standards for buildings. Something we feel strongly about is you cannot effectively solve what you cannot measure. So everything that we're looking at is focused on the actual data that you're collecting and the actual performance of the building. The kind of biggest difference between how RESET approaches building standards and other standards is that we are non-prescriptive in regards to solutions. So earlier in one of the slides, it showed design choices. I mean, there were 4 circles. I forgot the other ones already, but the third one was about performance and basically how your building is being implemented. That's the only thing we're focusing on. Just if we're talking about air quality, for example, what you implement into the building in terms of solutions is not important if the end result is that the performance is not hitting good air quality. So the entire focus of what we're doing in terms of simplifying the entire concept of what we need to measure is we just need to measure the performance. We don't care as much about how you solve it as long as you can solve it with the results that you want. So if we simplify everything in terms of what RESET's doing, we're performance first. That's the most important thing we're looking at. And the second thing we're looking at is data, because performance requires data to showcase it. Another term I want to just bring up really quickly that we actually talk about a lot is quantitative versus qualitative. Quantitative is something that has numbers behind it, something that you can actually use to calculate things. Qualitative is slightly more subjective. It could be a checklist of things that you need to complete, or it could be a survey questions for people to kind of give you more feedback. So it gives a more holistic view, but it's not as focused in terms of performance as quantitative is. And so RESET's main focus is on the quantitative side, trying to highlight getting actual data for your building. Really quickly before we dive into air, this is the last slide before we go straight into air. With performance, we started with air quality, and I'll kind of give the history of that in a little bit. Aside from that, we're also looking at water, energy, and waste. All of it focuses on just how you measure all these things, so it's benchmarkable against other projects, and we don't care how you solve any of it, as long as you have the performance data to showcase it. Something else that's relatively new, and technically the starting point of what we've done as a company is embodied. So looking at the materials that go into the building. That's also something that we're looking at right now, embodied carbon, where we're looking at basically quantifying all the materials that go into a building so you can calculate how much of an impact that has, because buildings take up approximately 40% of all GHG gases released into the air, and a large chunk of that is embodied. So making sure that we kind of look at everything holistically is important. With that said, we're going to now dive into air. So the tagline that I like to use is that RESET Air is about seeing the invisible. The genesis of RESET Air as a standard was back in 2014, and it was because in China, there was a documentary that came out talking about how the fog that we saw outside was not fog, but actually air pollution. And so, excuse me, that documentary made everyone realize that we have an air quality problem. But most people understood it as an outdoor air quality problem. It's not an indoor air quality problem, because outdoor, you can actually see the fog. Indoor, unless you're burning something, you're not going to see the fog of air pollution. You're not seeing PM2.5 at 200 in an indoor environment when you're this close to it. You're not going to see CO2 levels rise to 5,000 ppm in an indoor environment. And VOCs, you might smell it, but there are a lot of VOCs where they're not as sensitive to your smell. So all these are technically invisible. And the only way we can really see it is leveraging technology like monitors and sensors to detect this kind of stuff. And so with RESET Air, what we were thinking about was we knew outdoor air quality was an issue. Now we wanted to convince people that indoor air quality was an issue. And the genesis of trying to move towards monitoring versus just a spreadsheet analysis of this was we were actually, I mentioned earlier that we started with materials. When we were working with materials, we were measuring VOC off-gassing by looking at all the reports for the materials and putting the VOC off-gassing data into a spreadsheet and trying to guess how much VOC was in the space based on the materials chosen. And we were wrong 99% of the time. And the reason was because in every construction project, there will be some material that's switched out, and that material, especially glues or varnishes, if you use the wrong one, when that off gases incredibly strongly, your VOC numbers are never going to be correct. And so that was already pushing us towards the concept of continuous monitoring to really understand air quality. And with the outdoor air quality issue, with our understanding of VOCs, all that together, that's how we thought of RESET Air as a potential solution to help people understand this is indoor air quality is very important, and it's something that we cannot see and something that can be measured if we have the right tools for it. This is a graph of what normally happens with indoor air quality testing, at least. So if you were tasked to test for air quality and you are a consultant and you're told that this has to pass, there's only one place you would test, and it's during the flush out phase. So in every other, in most traditional air quality standards, this is the requirement. You have to test indoor air quality for a certain amount of time, typically 2 to 8 hours. And then as long as those levels are under the threshold, then you pass. The problem for this is most of the time, you're testing at the best case scenario, and you don't know how the building is going to perform afterwards. During the flush out phase, you have all your windows open, you have your fresh air systems on full. That's not the case for how you're going to use the space when you're occupying it. And so if you're looking at just a spot test, the problem is that you're not actually understanding how the space will perform over time. Another kind of analogy for this is a spot test is a DSLR camera. You get really high res understanding of how the space, the air quality is like in the space. And then continuous monitoring system is more like a CCTV camera. It's blurrier. You're not going to get absolutely accurate data, but you get the trend. You get to see what's happening over time. So if you're going to catch a robber, you're not going to do it with a DSLR camera. You're going to do it with a CCTV camera. So in terms of what RESET Air does, as a standard, again, we don't focus on solutions, so we focus only on how you measure the space. One of the things that we do is monitor specifications. So there's an entire process that we have for testing monitors, and the focus is on how this monitor performs over time, and is it consistent? So the testing process is 5 monitors. At least our testing process right now is we require a monitor provider to send us 5 monitors. We put it into a actual office space and we run it for 3 weeks. And we have to, what we're trying to determine is 2 things. One is, are these monitors from the same company able to perform in a way where they're consistent with each other? And the reason for this is because if a company is only able to put these sensors together and deploy it without any kind of calibration knowledge in the team for how to make these consistent across the board, the company is not going to be in a good position to help provide monitors that have good data quality, because all they know is actually just putting everything together. Teams that can actually give us monitors that pass are ones who have a few people in the team who have a deep understanding of how to operate monitors before they're delivered to a client. And so that's the first thing we're testing. The second thing is whether or not they can they're aligned in terms of how they compare to a reference. And one thing that's important to note for continuous monitoring is you're really looking for trend more than absolute numbers in most cases, especially for VOC. For CO2, most sensors are mature enough that you can go for absolute numbers. PM2.5, the hard part about it is that it depends on how it's calibrated. If it was calibrated for, let's say, a city with heavy metals, where there's a lot of mining or manufacturing, it's different from a city that's mostly agricultural, where the pollution is from burning crops and stuff. So it's just PM2.5. There's a bit more. There's a bit of range in terms of how it's calibrated. We're going into details right now, but just highlighting that for monitors, the way we're testing is making sure that they're consistent over time. And then the second thing is, if they're different, there's ways to add K factors to the readings to get them more aligned to what you need them to be. The second thing that we do is deployment rules, and this touches on installation requirements as well. So the standard focuses on where you need to put your monitors, how many there needs to be, depending on what your space is like. So that's the bulk of the standard technically. And the end result is that we want data that is high quality. So they're trusted and actionable and relevant for the project. And the last part in terms of certification is requiring certain rules around reporting and also how you connect the data to the cloud. Because the traditional buildings, one of the biggest issues that we've seen with traditional building systems is that they have all this data collected, but no one can see it. And so part of what we wanted was all systems that are doing RESET Air, that are pursuing RESET Air, they're connected to the cloud in some way. And it's because once it's connected to the cloud, this data becomes more easily accessible. And that's when you can use the data for more things. And just highlighting how that structure works in terms of how things are connected. If you're just using a standard to understand where to deploy monitors, you only really need the first two layers, the monitors, the hardware that actually physically goes into a project, and then data providers, which are software platforms that are basically hosting all the data from your monitors. If you're going for certification where you're trying to prove that everything that you're doing is legitimate, then there's a summary piece that the data providers package for the RESET cloud to perform analytics and benchmarking on. As a third party, we do not provide data provider or monitor services, but we do have a directory of services and partners that have gone through our process and due diligence to basically be an accredited monitor or an accredited data provider. The last piece for RESET Air, before I go into case studies, is breaking down the concept of there are two different parties in most buildings that are responsible for air quality. One is the landlord and the other is the tenant themselves. So when we first started, the obvious scenario was we're looking at interiors. We're looking at the air actually being breathed by people. And so we have a standard focused on just where do you need to deploy monitors for a indoor space. So this is the interiors, commercial interiors part. Afterwards, we were engaged by a landlord where they got complaints from a tenant saying there's really bad air quality and it's the landlord's fault. And the landlord couldn't do anything about it because they think they've done everything they could from the system perspective, central system perspective, and that the air quality issue was actually a tenant issue, not something the landlord can control. And so they engaged us to create a core and shell standard for air quality, focused on measuring the air being delivered from the central system before it hits the tenant space. And so that's a core and shell standard where you install monitors in the central ducts instead of in the tenant space. So those are two different typologies, two different standards for our RESET Air approach. The monitors are more or less the same, except that the core and shell ones require a casing to limit the airflow from the ducts because air moves much faster in the ducts, and the flow of air, how fast it moves, can actually affect your the readings from the sensors. So we're going to touch upon a few case studies now, and most of these case studies are slightly older because these are all like case studies of certain scenarios, and they all kind of hit during the first couple of years when we were piloting a lot of these concepts. For RESET, because we're focused not on the solution, but on measuring, it doesn't matter if it's a new building or an old existing property, all of it's applicable. And I'll go through that to kind of explain how different projects have used this. And I'll also mention a project in India as well. So the first case study I'll mention is a new build. This is an office tower. And the thing that they did was they actually went above and beyond the requirements for RESET. They installed air quality sensors in every single floor. This is for core and shell. And what they did was, with that monitoring, they had hyperlocal information, which meant they knew air quality across the entire building on every floor. And because it was a new build, there were a lot of new tenants moving in. And Hines, their approach is that they're very strict on when people can do any kind of construction in the building. In this case, they were only allowing construction to happen at nighttime, nothing during the daytime, because construction generates PM2.5, generates VOCs, and they weren't having any of that because the centralized system is shared. The fun part for this building, and a lot of anecdotes we got from them, was because they had monitors on every single floor, every time some PM2.5 or VOC spiked, they sent security over to that floor. They always found somebody in the construction team for that floor trying to catch up on something. So they were doing construction during hours that they weren't supposed to. And because they had sensors in place, they would always catch it before anything worse happened. And so for this type of building, essentially the sensors allow them to be much more responsive than reactive to any kind of air quality situation. Tishman was the actual landlord that reached out to us to develop the core and shell standard. And it was because, like we mentioned earlier, a tenant was in the space complaining all the time, saying that there was very bad air quality, and they blamed it on the landlord. And the landlord believes that they've done everything they could, so they needed to prove it. With a standard and third-party measuring everything for you, the good thing is you can now not only state that you have good air quality from the systems, you can also state that it's third-party verified, so it's not just you saying it. And the good thing about this is now the conversation is not about, it's not a blame game anymore. You're not just pointing fingers. You're actually able to move forward with solutions and communication around how do we resolve this, instead of just saying it's your fault or my fault. Carey Properties, they had almost all their office towers across their portfolio do RESET Air. And the reason for it was because they didn't believe their facilities team, actually, it's not that they didn't believe, they just knew their facilities team did not have experience with air quality, and they wanted to set KPIs for their facilities teams to essentially have good air quality for the building. This was a very interesting experience for us because their facilities teams, once their bonuses were tied to a KPI around air quality, we were getting nonstop calls from all their projects asking us how they should solve some of the issues. And in 6 months' time, most of their properties had good air quality because basically for the facilities team, this was now part of getting good air quality was part of their bonus. So they made it a top priority instead of something that they would never think about otherwise. In retail environments, this is one of the harder cases that we've seen. This is a Starbucks where they have a roastery in the space. So on the right side of this picture, there's actually an entire system of beans being roasted and packaged, which means that there's high levels of PM2.5. They have a lot of filtration set up and everything. We weren't involved in the actual solutions, but the result is that because of everything they implemented, they actually have very good levels of PM2.5. They maintain low levels of CO2. And to be honest, most people wouldn't know the difference if they didn't have good PM2.5 or good CO2 levels because it's invisible. But we've been watching them, they've been monitoring. And when you go into a space like this, where there's low levels of CO2, when there's so many people in there, it does feel like you're going into a place with fresh air. A hotel space. So this was more for marketing. For this hotel, they wanted to highlight that good air quality also affects your sleep, which is actually true. And the way they went with it was install monitors in every single room and create an app on your TV where you can open and see what the air quality is in your room. If you see like if you go to a hotel and you see indoor air quality data in the room without an actual air quality monitor in there, do not trust it. So make sure you see the monitor in the room as well. And the last case study is about leveraging data to resolve issues. So this is a school building, and what happened with it was they used a they basically had air quality issues. So PM2.5 was very high, TVOC levels were very high, and they wanted to figure out how to solve it. The company they hired to resolve the issues and come up with a solution was a big implementer of RESET Air. And so their solution to the client was, we're going to come in here, we're going to install a bunch of monitors, we're going to look at how the data performs over 2 weeks to a month, and then we'll suggest to you the solutions to solve it. And with the data, they were able to target specifically a couple of rooms that were having the largest issues, and basically a very targeted solution. So it wasn't as expensive, it was much more, and you could see the results right after implementing the solution because they were already monitoring. So once the solutions were implemented, once the air quality was good, the client actually decided we will go for RESET Air as a certification because this helps them understand whether or not their building was actually operating properly instead of just an initial spot test where it might have looked good, but depending on how facilities teams operated afterwards, it's a different scenario. The last slide here is just pulled from our directory. So this is the only official project in India right now. It's Gartner's office. And the way that we do it is we try to highlight all the partners that were involved because this is never a one team project. It's a lot of people coming together to work together to make this happen. With continuous monitoring, you're working with not just solutions, but you're looking at IT systems, connecting all the data, making sure everything's installed correctly, consulting, et cetera. There's a lot of parts involved. So it is a huge undertaking. But if you have it implemented correctly, it's much more longer term because with continuous monitoring, you really understand how the building's performing over time, which is important because air quality fluctuates very, very quickly and easily. And without measuring it properly, you just don't know what's going to happen over time. So with that said, that's my presentation for RESET Air. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stanton. On to the next session. Our next speaker is Dimpy Daroch from UL. She is a dynamic leader in the field of sustainability and currently serving as the lead sales for healthy buildings and ESD in the APAC region at UL Solutions. With over 14 years of global experience, she specializes in green buildings, product sustainability, and ESD software. Her career spans diverse industries from manufacturing to multinational corporations and real estate. Known for her business development acumen, Dimpy has successfully launched and grown multiple businesses for organizations from the ground up. She holds a master's degree in environmental sciences, underscoring her commitment to environmental stewardship. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on this dialogue, Dimpy. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Dipanjali. A very good morning to all of you. My name is Dimpy Daroch. Thank you, Dipanjali, for that very long introduction. And I represent UL Solutions today. I'd be talking about how you can keep your buildings healthy. And I'll be taking you through the program by UL called the Verified Healthy Buildings mark. Do you know what this number on the screen represents? Since I'm presenting last and a lot of contextual stuff is happening, I think you can guess it. This is actually the number of green health and wellness related building standards that exist in the world today. So 600 and counting. That's a lot, right? But the deal is, or the fact is, that all of these do coexist. Health and wellness of a building is not like a one size fits all. Um, Different buildings have different needs, depending, different goals. The occupants may have, a different requirements or complaints. The building owner may have, different goals. And that is when, as advisors, consultants, or as building owners, you need to decide on what works best for you. Having said that, I'm going to be introducing to you the fairly new kid on the block, the UL's Verified Healthy Buildings Mark. I will be giving you an overview of what a healthy building should be, talking about the program, and give you 2 case studies from Asia. Okay, so another picture on your screen. Imagine the scenario. There is this very newly built bridge, and it's ready to be inaugurated by somebody very prominent, the CM or somebody maybe. And the performance testing of this bridge was missed. What could probably go wrong? It's not hard to guess. I'm not claiming that this is what happened here, but these scenarios are not rare. And performance verification is the way you can ensure that a building, a system, a service, or a bridge is working as it was intended to. In fact, performance verification is the only way that you can make sure that it does. Let's bring the conversation to air quality. We all know what this is. It's a dirty filter. If you want to make sure that this doesn't happen, you need to replace it depending on what the filter class is, for a MERV 13 every 3 to 6 months. How would you do that? You need to ensure that there is maintenance happening in the building, right? If you're sitting inside a building, you don't know whether there is mold under that sink, or how much dust is trapped in the carpet. What your indoor air quality looks like, or how your water quality is, hygiene is, and whether the lighting is conducive to the health and well-being of the occupants, or the noise levels. I strongly believe that healthy indoor environment is the foundation of a healthy building, and the only way that you can ensure that is via performance verification, which is science-backed. And the Verified Healthy Buildings program, or the UL's Verified Healthy Buildings Mark, delivers just that. I'm going to give you like a program overview. This is a tier-based program. All these tiers are additive, and it's a program where you decide what level of commitment do you want to go for. So I'll talk about these tiers in detail. The first tier, which is the Verified Healthy Buildings Mark for indoor air, it focuses on testing for indoor air quality. So the parameters like carbon dioxide or PM levels or NOx and SOx, they'll be based on whatever that building's problem areas are. Then it is aided with a visual inspection of the entire building, the HVAC systems, which is focusing on the ventilation, filtration, and hygiene. There are pressure tests, which is very important, and maybe I'll get to talk about it a little later too. And mold and moisture testing, checking for plumbing leaks through thermal imagery. So all of this very comprehensive assessment of the building is done to understand how the indoor air quality is, and to ensure that it is functioning as intended. Likewise, for tier 2, apart from all the air components, there are water tests like the Legionella tests as per ASHRAE 188, and all the various water, drinking water testing and water panel sample based on the global and Indian standards like the IS standards. For tier 3, apart from the indoor air, water, there will also be hygiene, acoustics, and lighting testing that will be done. So, there is this ATP sampling where all the touch points are tested to make sure, the hygiene is maintained. I think it's very popular during pandemics. Talking about the process, so if you're looking for something which is fast to market, so like I said, different needs for different people, then the process is fairly fast and very simple, and does not involve a second party. So it starts with you sending us some floor plans and your policies, which are on indoor air quality, mold and moisture, preventive maintenance, like the basic policies. And even if you don't have it, we help you build them. So once this policy work is done and your floor plans are with us, we will set up a site inspection. This site inspection is based on the building area largely. So depends on that, maybe 1 to 5 days, the site inspection gets completed, usually in 2 days for an average building size in India. Once the site inspection is complete, within 3 weeks, you are submitted a report card, and we request you for a report card discussion. This discussion basically forms the basis of what your building's indoor air quality or indoor environment quality is. And if there are issues, we work together to resolve them. And once that is done, you are awarded with the UL's Verified Healthy Building mark. So, this is a super fast way to ensure that your building is healthy, but also science-backed, and you're ensuring that, yes, everything is working as intended. We also offer co-promotion, with our marketing team, if that is, again, the goal of the building owner or, the tenant. The program is based on all of these expert approved benchmarks. So, we'll be, the thresholds are all as per the global standards that are very well recognized in India. This program has several iterations. So it is applicable to commercial real estate, to hotels, manufacturing site. We even did it for a fire station. And we recently, like literally 2 months ago, launched our new construction part of the program, which is also applicable to residential sector. So, if somebody is looking at, getting certified across portfolios, then this could be just a single mark that can work for all of them. Like I mentioned, we all coexist. So there are crosswalks, and the program is, aligned with well or fit well, and even programs like RESP, disclosures that real estate industry does. Okay, and now I come to the final part of my presentation, which are the 2 case studies that I'm going to be talking you through. The first one that I want to talk about is very close to heart, RMZ Infinity. So the RMZ's leadership was very strongly involved in making this decision to get a program that has scientific rigor and is data-based, because they were focused on ESG disclosures at that point in time, and they wanted something which was auditable. So this program just fit that condition or that requirement of theirs, and we certified their Infinity building in 2022, and with the success of this program, we were able to sign up the rest of their buildings across India. This is, a statement from their leadership, where they specifically state, what was the key driver for them to choose the UL's Verified Healthy Buildings program over others. We also recently awarded the mark with a very huge press release to one of prominent builders in Taiwan, JSL. So their goal or their intention to get a health and wellness building standard was because JSL is essentially a construction company, and they are very well aware of the UL mark, which is very, very prestigious when on chillers and building materials and fire dampers and whatnot. And they felt that having that UL logo on their building could gain them a lot of prestige, and hence the major press release. So that was the goal, and that is how JSL prioritized this mark for their buildings. I think from my conversations, what I remember is that not only that, while the prestige part was what was most important during our assessment of this building, the JSL owners or the chairman got pretty impressed, and they pushed us to actually move this mark into residential sectors so they could also get the homes certified. So, and hence we have the JSLs, we have the new construction mark, which is applicable to residential sector as well. So this is my last slide. If you have any questions, you can contact me directly as well after this presentations, or of course you can write to EDS. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dimpy. So I would now like to open the floor for a discussion with our experts. I request Mr. Gurneet Singh to kindly moderate this session. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dimpy, and thank you, Stanton and Dimpy, for guiding us through the details of RESET and UL verified mark. I could see a lot of questions from participant indicating that it was an engaging and quite insightful session. Building on their curiosity, I would like to ask few more questions. Let's start with the lady. So, Dimpy, in terms of, we all know, as Stanton has highlighted, performance verification of IIQ must be continuous. How does UL verified healthy building mark ensure that feedback loop?
Thank you for that question. Actually, yes, while Stanton was presenting, I really wanted to emphasize this, that he mentioned a very valid point of performance, and I think performance data is really essential, and verification of data only ensures that everything is functioning as it is supposed to. In order to have that verification maintained in a building, not only do you need data, which is also a part of this program. So there is this feedback loop in the UL's VHB, wherein you need to get either a testing done every 6 months of the building, or you have sensors placed in the building, and we use that sensor data to ensure that this the building is still performing as intended. However, there will still be an annual site visit for the building inspection to inspect the areas of the building.
Okay, thank you for highlighting that. Over to you, Stanton. As per your experience, what are the common challenges that organization face when seeking IIQ certification, and how can they overcome them?
I think from what we've seen over the years, the hardest thing is convincing that we should spend the budget for it, because air quality is not something that is measurable in terms of revenue for most companies. So let me take a step back. Right now, in the past 2 years, I think sustainability has been a big topic. So measuring your energy consumption, measuring anything related to carbon, that's something that you would measure because you can use it for marketing afterwards. You could say you're net zero, you're carbon neutral, whatever. That's all marketing related stuff that can help build a better image for your company. But when you talk about air quality, the closest thing that we have in terms of research that has a lot of push towards why we need to care about air quality is the Harvard research done around productivity. So using air quality as a proxy to say, oh, your workers will be this much more productive, they'll be getting sick less, which is strengthened by the whole COVID being airborne. All of that stuff is applicable, but again, this is not a number that is normally calculated by most companies. So don't have a dollar value, and without the dollar value, it's hard for companies to say why this investment is worth it. So I think the biggest piece for air quality is how do we prove that this is worth the investment? And I think until technologies and systems are less expensive, where it feels like a no-brainer, oh, we should spend this money no matter what, this is going to be an uphill battle the entire time. And I think with the other thing is that as we're seeing the world kind of burn in some ways, there are more people caring about air quality. So North America specifically last year had a bunch of wildfires, literally burning. So the skies in New York City were red. That prompted, like in that month, we got so many emails from different people asking about air quality certification because they could see the problem. It became something that was visible for them. That's going to be part of the process, I think, where people just have to see that this is an issue. But from our perspective, the hardest thing is just getting people to have the budget for air quality.
A follow-up question, do you see after COVID and also with this ESG factor coming in where the S part identifies the social impact and there is points related to wellness and health being of the employees and occupant. Do you see any change or in the perception of companies towards indoor air quality compared to energy, water, and those parameters?
So I would say that during COVID, there was a lot of incentive to look at air quality. Some of the most interesting case studies that we saw for why was they wanted to save energy. And part of it was when COVID was happening, there were a lot of requirements around having your fresh air systems turned on 24/7 at max capacity, regardless of the weather outside, which means that your heating and cooling system now is running at full capacity and it can't really handle the load. At the same time, there was nobody in the building. Like in most commercial buildings, everyone was staying at home. So you're wasting a ton of energy. Your CO2 levels are down to like outdoor levels. You're running so much energy for heating and cooling, and it was for nothing, right? Like there's no one in the building. And so if you had monitoring in place, this is actually what there was a landlord in Chicago called Sterling Bay. They had systems in place. And basically what they did was if CO2 levels are lower than 500, 600 for their central systems, you just stop bringing the fresh air. And they save tons of money on that. And so like that was kind of the conversation around there for a while. But there was a lot more interest, at least, in understanding how air quality worked and what monitoring was, that kind of stuff. The issue with COVID was that everyone's budget got slashed. Every landlord that we work with before, they still love talking to us, but they're like, we have no money to give you. So they still want to learn, they still want to understand what is happening, but all their budgets got slashed. So they basically are not spending any money, but let's hope that in the next couple of years when they're less cramped because of COVID, they'll have more money to spend. This is something that's important. But just to finish the answer, there's one thing that we've seen, and there is now a very, very big push for sustainability. So all the money that would have potentially been directed towards the health during COVID is now going to be directed to sustainability and energy. So the key for air quality is going to be looking at balancing energy and air, because if we're talking about just energy or air by itself, it's actually very simple. You just have really good air quality systems, run it 24/7, you have always good air quality. If it's for energy, turn off all your air quality systems, lower your, just don't care about air quality, and your energy bills will be very, very low. The key is going to be finding that balance where you have comfort, health in the building, as well as lower energy costs. And that's going to require systems that are automated. And I think that's going to be kind of the key message if we want to kind of push health along with sustainability.
Yeah, that's what we also observed. Generally, the owner or the developer give priority on energy side, and given that IAQ certification primarily benefits the occupants, but the decision of lies often with the HR or the facility or the developer, and they generally are maybe reluctant or disinterested for obvious reasons. So, Dimpy, what are the strategies that you can suggest to overcome this challenge and motivate these teams to prioritize invest in IAQ certification or monitoring and performance verification? Is it good idea or way to reach out to the end user rather than the developer and the facility team? And any suggestions on that from you, Dimpy?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for this question. I think a large part of my job is to find the answer to that at UL. But from my experiences, I was having this conversation with one major developer, and so he's built nice big buildings, and they're all rented out. And I was pitching for the UL's Verified Healthy Buildings Mark to him, and I'm telling him, these are the benefits, and this is what you can get, and things like that. And he's like, you know what? All my building is rented, and the rent is blocked for 5 years. Okay, so how does it matter if if the pricing of the if I can I cannot charge more to my tenant anymore. So that aspect is not valid and doesn't care. So then I decide that maybe I need to go to the tenant, and I need to talk to the tenant and figure out if you want to have a better health for your occupants, and you need to kind of push for something like this. So when you go to tenants, they'd be like, you know what, there is this AHU system, or the HVAC systems, they are not handled by us. The building owner is the responsible for them. So even if you say that there will be an issue, then our occupants will come up and tell us that, oh my god, there are so many issues in the building, but we cannot resolve them because the AHU is not under our control. So it's truly a problem that exists, and you rightly pointed out. But having said that, the encouraging part over here is that both the building owner and the tenant agree that this is an issue. There is an incentive to it, and like the building owner can increase rents, and there is an incentive to the building tenants if they get better health for their occupants. I think timing is essential. So you need to reach out to the building owner before he rents it, and I think you need to, I think that is the right time for both tenants and the building owners to get this sorted.
Thank you, Stanton. Any views from your side on this part, how to address this issue?
The one thing that we saw that was kind of interesting was that there are two different types of buildings in terms of landlords. One of them are the top tier. So actually, just like Dimpy said, they already have all their customers rented their entire space. They're at 95 to 100% capacity. So they don't need anything new in some ways. And there are the other buildings that are trying to catch up. Like they have more occupancy. They're trying to make sure they sell everything. And what we've heard from both of them is completely different. So for the companies for the landlords that actually have a lot of occupancy, they have no capacity to look at anything else other than trying to raise their capacity. And then in terms of whether or not they will invest to improve their building is completely dependent on the owner of the building. Like, are they interested in investing or not? Most from what we've seen are not, because they don't think the market's good enough for them to invest. And so they'll just let the asset hang for now. For grade A buildings, the really high tier ones, again, there are two different types. There are the ones who are actively exploring how to spend their budget now that they're ahead. They're essentially, you don't have to spend any budget on trying to attract new tenants or anything. They're looking at what is the unique thing that I can sell for my building. And so for them, the conversations are more exploratory. They're not necessarily going for the standard certification by itself, but they're trying to think of a way to make their building more attractive to future clients as well. So, and also how to provide more value. A lot of things that we've been seeing is targeting things like tenant engagement programs, where I think we just lost Granny. But anyways, I'll keep going. Tenant engagement programs where we're building essentially a gamification process for the landlord to push the tenants into a game essentially for either better air quality, or better energy efficiency, that kind of stuff. And so there's a lot of more conversations around that where it's more holistic. We're not just targeting one small thing. And for air quality, everyone shares the air quality in most buildings because the centralized systems, there is return air for energy efficiency. And if one space has really bad TVOC, it will affect a different space. So in general, what we're seeing is there is investment. It's just you have to approach slightly differently. It can't be just talking to them in a way where we're trying to sell a standard or certification, but it has to be more about thinking from their perspective, a more marketing approach. Like, what can we do here that includes what we're trying to offer in terms of continuous monitoring, data, performance, but in a way where they can repackage it for their customers or their tenants.
Thank you. So just one last question again to both of you. Anything that you would like to share, anecdote from the projects where you saw a improved air environment quality after they have adopted the IAQ certification? Any anecdote that you would like to share, starting with Dimpy?
Okay, sure. Actually, a couple of them that I can think of, but let me start with, okay, this one was pretty simple. So this was actually one of the buildings that we were testing for, and the very basic thermal comfort levels or the temperature levels in the common areas, especially the lobby, was coming out to be higher. And it was coming out to be higher, like every time we did it, different times of the day, we try to figure that, what could be the reason, and why is something as simple as that not working out. And so we figured this during the site inspection that, during the report card discussion, that there was this building pressure issue, which was so simple to resolve. And that caused, that heating of the lobby area, because usually what happens is people try to not have a lot of air conditioning or the temperatures over there, lower temperatures, but it was causing a problem to especially visitors who were coming in there. So very simple, very basic, but it was something that was that we were able to figure out. A similar situation, but this was something which involved with a major investment or de-investment, I'd say, was one of our clients at a public space where they were having major RSPM level issues. So since a public place, it's hard to control a particulate matter, even in the indoor environment. And we try to figure what all can we do. Could figure even after placing purification devices, the filters would block out like in a month, and it was like too fast and very, very difficult scenario. The levels were not coming down, and ultimately they realized the culprit was carpet. And from an end, I don't know how many square footage was that, like over 1 million, and they had to remove all of that carpet. So that was like a major cost that they had to incur. But yeah, but this is the level of commitment. It depends on the level of commitment of the owner, and especially for a public space, I think the pressure is high. So yeah.
That's interesting. Anything that you would like to share, Stanton?
Sorry, could you repeat the question really quick? Because I had to move rooms and I missed the question.
Just wanted to see, I mean, any project where you saw a improvement in indoor air quality after they adopted the certification, whether the RESET certification.
So for RESET, most of the time, air quality doesn't improve after; it improves before they certify. Because most companies, they do not invest in the certification unless they know they'll pass. And so for RESET, most of the time, everything happens beforehand. So we don't actually see most of these scenarios. One company that we do know that did do this regardless was a office. I'm not going to call them out because I'm not sure if they want me to call them out, but they're a architecture firm in the US, and they had an office where it's a centralized system where the air is being shared between different offices. They had really good PM2.5, they had really good CO2, but their VOC was really bad. And they know the culprit. They knew who it was. They knew which office was polluting the entire space. But regardless of what they did with in terms of communication with the landlord didn't do anything about it. And so over a year, they basically started looking at solutions. They had a lot of VOC solutions that were implemented into the office, but none of them helped to get them to the level that they need to be to pass our requirements, until they essentially built a system where they were cleaning out the VOCs before they hit their office. So they were actually putting a system into the ducts before it hit their office to clean out VOC. So there are systems like that uses oxidation. So, or actually not oxidation, but electric static charges to kind of attract VOCs and get them to stick on a surface somewhere. And they had to implement that across their entire office to make it happen. So that would be an example where they knew that they wanted to achieve certification. They had all the data. They advertised that they had, they were very conscious of air quality by being RESET accredited instead of certified. But yeah, that was the approach that they had to push towards better air quality over time after they started the RESET certification process.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. So I would like to thank both of you and also want to take this opportunity to explore how Cleaner Air Better Health Program, the CABH program, can partner to support your mission and enhance the success rate adoption of IEQ certification. So I will possibly reach out to you after the webinar to discuss this further. Thank you very much. Over to you, Dipanjali.
Thank you. That was really an enriching discussion, and we've explored how, certification systems and rating systems provide a framework to prioritize indoor air quality. Before we conclude today's session, I want to express our warmest thanks on behalf of the entire CABH team to our experts Stanton Wong and Dimpy Daroch for joining us today and sharing your expertise and insights. And a big thank you to our audience for being part of this Breathe In dialogue. We hope this dialogue can help you make informed decisions to improve indoor air quality wherever in your homes, office, schools, and implement some of these best practices for good indoor air quality. Stay tuned for our next dialogue on our social media platforms. With that, we bring this dialogue webinar to a close. Thank you so much.